Now, here is your host.
How are we doing, lads? We all good? Good. You mean like at Universal Studios? Which is a very appropriate joke, because today I ain't talking about Universal Studios.
Huh?
I'm talking about Disneyland. Disneyland. If you didn't already know, your boy's writing his own series of Doctor Who. Just side note, just before we get to the good stuff, before we get to Wonderworld, if you're not bothered about this, skip ahead to this number. But I don't feel like a lot of people write their own series of Doctor Who, or indeed make fan series of Doctor Who, but I feel like when they do, they fall into the trap of making it so damn samey, do you know what I mean? Hey, they've done it, and in a lot of cases they've actually recorded it, which is more than can be said for mine. Mine's literally just words on a Generation 1 iPad. It's like this, lads. It's like, they always put the Doctor in extravagant costumes, and they always do like, it's the Cybermen, it's the this, it's the that, or they do some like big grandeur plot. It just sort of leaves me thinking, well, you know, I'm not like possessed to watch these things because they're not interesting. It's not drawing me in as a viewer, do you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, what's unique about this? Like, this just feels like it's emulating the style of something else, and that something else being Doctor Who, being existing Doctor Who. So what you're doing isn't adding anything. I guess my point is, you're not adding anything, you're just doing more of the same. Now don't get me wrong, the show literally ran for what, 20 odd years doing literally the same, so clearly there's a market for it, but I wanted to do things a little bit differently. So I asked myself, I'm like, Joe, what's some things you enjoy? What's some things you like? What's some things unique to you? What can you put in your Doctor Who series that nobody else could put in their Doctor Who series? You know, assuming everybody has one. And it got me to thinking, well, 3 things that I really like are musicals, theme parks, and Lego. So I did a musical episode, which I might talk about in a future video, but you know, it's kind of fine. It's okay. Done an episode set in a theme park, which is the feature of today's video. I've not got around to the Lego episode yet. I'm trying to sort of tie in with the Sky Kia plot. There you go. So, Wonderworld. Long story short, in my Doctor Who universe, Disney never existed. Walt Disney himself never existed. Disneyland does not exist. Instead, you've got a guy called Adi Adams, who had the pretty much exact same life as Walt Disney, but with one key difference. The key difference being he got a job as a miner in the 1930s, and he unearthed this rock and gave sentience and life to robots. And the second difference being, he was actually developing animatronics to work in the park. You know, because I've always been interested by the Abraham Lincoln animatronic and just kind of how it moved and stuff. So what if Walt Disney had a magical rock that if he put it next to Abe Lincoln gained sentience and became alive, and that he could harness that technology and put it in all the animatronics in the park. It's also sort of going off the kind of creepypasta but not idea that, like, you know, what if you're on like a theme park ride and there's like an animatronic sort of ghost host, if you will, and basically when the ride ends they're still awake, sort of thing. Bit night at museum, you know what I mean? A little bit Black Mirror, a little bit out there. Well, not Black Mirror, but you know what I mean? A little bit out there, don't even worry about it. So I put a lot of work into this episode. If I wanted the Doctor to go to Disneyland, I'd write the Doctor went to Disneyland in the end, but I didn't. I was like, I want to challenge myself to lovingly rip off, lovingly homage Disney. And I put a lot of work and effort into it. I mean, I put a lot of work and effort into the whole series, to be honest, lads, and it'll never get, the BBC will never make it. Now, they will one day, they just don't know it yet. But I do. And that's called manifesting, kids.
I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it.
But Wonderworld is the most recognisable property. The thing that separates the Wonderworld episode, apart from any other setting that I've made, is with a lot of the other settings, you know, start from the ground up, yeah, they build on general sort of sci-fi and fantasy tropes, but like I have to explain a lot of stuff. Any other setting that I've invented, I'd have to sort of explain to you, oh, it's this, but it looks like this, but it might be concepts you're not familiar with, and if you've not seen a certain show or a certain movie or stuff, you know, you might not get what I'm talking about. But if I'm telling you about Wonderworld and that it's in the style of Disney, you would like it. So the second reason I wanted to talk about Wonderworld is because it's a big part of my style. If it wasn't already clear, my style is taking existing things and making them into new things, mixing genres, unexpected sort of genre, semiotics. When I was at uni, we were taught about something called semiotics, which is the look and feel of a thing. And I was fascinated with how you can sort of draw on that, excavate that, and then apply it to something else. You're not copying it, you're paying loving homage. So yeah, I wanted to sort of talk through the park, basically. So it's based off Disneyland in California, assuming it was built in the 1950s and literally added on top of it. But But the key difference here is that, yeah, as you literally start off in the park of Wonderworld, it will look very similar to Disney World, but the further we go in, I'm adding stuff that I think would be quite fun that Disney World doesn't actually have in real life. So yeah, let's dive in to Wonderworld. So a big thing about all of Wonderworld is that it's populated by these animatronics called Stanleys. Now Stanleys, real sort of like redhead, smile like apple pie, do you know what I mean? And the Stanleys exist in every area. So when you're in the cowboy place, there's cowboy Stanleys. When you're in the space place, spacemen Stanleys. Adi Adams, who's my Walt Disney in this universe, Stanley is not the first robot he made, but it's the first one he mass produced. And they've been going since like the late 50s, early 60s. Theme park host, you know, obviously chit-chat with the customers, and they love the people. So when you first enter Wonderworld, you're greeted by Streetcar Square, which is a real San Francisco meets Meet Me in St. Louis. You know, you got the trolley cars sort of trundling down and what have you. It's Main Street USA, basically. It's the America that never was, you know what I mean? It's very cozy, very kitsch, and there's lots of jokes about, oh, well, this isn't the real America, ha ha ha. Well, maybe it was at one point, you know. Moving on, we've got Bayou Bay, which is a New Orleans area, but like really leans into it. So here you have the Haunted Mansion ride, which is based off the Bourbon Orleans Hotel, which is a real-life hotel that is allegedly haunted. I did put like a sort of voodoo ride in here where you were like in a jeep and you sort of drive through and like, you know, characters come in, but it seemed a little bit problematic, so I gently nudged that one off to the side. Although, as you will see further down, we ain't worried about problematic imagery in Wonderworld, no sir. Bayou Bay is, it's very deep south, it's very swampy, do you know what I mean? Yeah, there's pirates running around, but the main focus is the Bayou, the Bourbon Orleans Hotel. Spaceport Place is Tomorrowland, but instead of Space Mountain, we've got Hyperdrive Run, which is kind of a mix of a few things. Then I also thought it would be funny that some parts of it, that Adi Adams didn't have the foresight that modern day Imagineering does. He didn't care about what's this going to look like in 50 years. He literally went for it then and there, and indeed made predictions. So if he opened the park in say 57, he's like, oh yeah, by 1965 American will have colonised the moon and da-da-da-da-da, you know, good old JFK's bouncing around and all this stuff. So it's quite funny, and obviously going from the scope of Doctor Who, it's quite funny that the Doctor's seeing all this crazy, wildly, horrendously inaccurate sort of like space predictions and stuff. It's funny. And then we've got the Wild West. A few jokes sort of running there. It's your cowboy town, but the main feature ride here was a fairly new ride. There used to be like a sort of horse and carriage ride that you might find in like a local sort of like, not Ren Fair, but you know, like a historical reenactment site. You know, because I don't have to make any of this, so I can ride whatever I want. It's an on-the-ground shoot 'em up with ray guns, and you're shooting zombie Civil War soldiers. And yes, there's sort of jokes about it, and you know what I mean, but it's like a bloodbath, basically. Like, they're not shying away. My Wonderworld is a mix of Imagineering from Universal Studios meets Westworld meets Disney. It's a bit of everything, basically. So yeah, you're fighting like Civil War soldiers who are like zombies, and it's quite fun. There is no castle in Wonderworld. I did have a couple of jokes in the script that only really make sense when you're reading the script. As Disney doesn't exist, none of the films exist. So instead of making Snow White and Cinderella, he makes 60 silk swans and the Dove Princess, and you know, fairy tales that Disney haven't actually touched in real life. They do it in this alternate reality. And so going on from that, none of it really made sense to make a princess castle. So Streetcar Square opens up to Bright Suns Lake, which features Bruce, the animatronic shark, and just like all the other animatronics in the park, Bruce is alive, Bruce is sentient. He defeats the villain at the end, he comes up and chomps him and stuff. Again, Disney would never touch Jaws ride with a 10-foot barge pole. There's a joke in here that there used to be a skipper tour. Bruce got very sort of competitive and giddy and would actually like snap at the guests and the skippers, and on occasion would sort of take one of them under for a little bit of a swim. So, you know, I'll leave you with that one. And from then on, we start to sort of leave the world of real life Disney behind and sort of venture into stuff of my own creation. So we've got Merry Old Little Land, which is a real Mary Poppins land, and I don't know, I think I just made up like a fictional Mary Poppins for this one, but yeah, Merry Old Little Land. It's the England Pavilion from Epcot on speed, do you know what I mean? Like, it's got a grand carousel, it's all lovely with flowers and bouquets and what have you, and it connects directly. There's like a mini world pavilion within this Disneyland. I don't know how they fit it all in, but there you go, they found a way. And this opens up to Little Oteldonk, which has a Matterhorn ride in it, which is just a general sort of runaway mine train roller coaster, and it used to include a ride called Escape from Colditz, which I don't know how that ride would have worked. It was kind of a joke, bit of a dark humour moment for me, and the idea is in the episode, so the episode, obviously you meet all these animatronic, you don't know they're sentient yet, but you meet all these animatronics, and then some Nazi animatronics appear and sort of commands the Doctor and Marlene, who's the daughter of Adi Adam. They reprimand our heroes, and when the heroes first see them, they're like, wait a second, you've got Nazi animatronics, do you want to explain this? And they were like, look, it was an old ride, which makes sense, because, you know, like in the 70s, they would have probably put an Escape from Colditz ride in there. I have no idea what that ride will look like, I just think it's funny. And I like the idea that if this was real life, that ride would probably still be going. It might be tamed down, or indeed, even if it was decommissioned in the 70s, people would still be bloody moaning about it, mate. Of course they would, do you know what I mean? People would very much still be like, oh, well, it's a part of history, and it's what Walt would have wanted, and all this stuff. Who knows, maybe there is. And then I don't really have a place for this. It would probably connect Merry Old Little Land with Little Oteldonk. It's called Little Lovely Lands, which, yeah, the name's quite similar, but you know, it's a small world ride, and they have to, the heroes during the course of the episode have to sort of escape through this, and now the animatronics in here, they're like the children of the forest. They're real creepy, do you know what I mean? They're all very tiny, and they all sort of like dead behind the eyes and stuff, do you know what I mean? It's no secret that Adi Adams, he had no love for these when he made them, so yes, he instilled them with sentience as he did with all of his robots and animatronics, but he didn't really care for these ones. Plus, they're only small, so they've only got teeny tiny brains anyway that can't really comprehend big thoughts. And lastly, we've got a brand new area. So Disneyland's got Galaxy's Edge bolted onto the side of it. We have Fujigata bolted onto the side of it. It's a brand new area. In the script, I was going to do a Galaxy's Edge parody, but I realised maybe that's too niche, and it's also not super interesting. We're already in a sci-fi show, and then we're making this parody land about a sci-fi film. Does not compute. So anyway, I scrapped that and made Fujigata. The idea behind Fujigata is that it's 1970s Japanese futurism. It was Adi Adams and the modern day Wonderworld Imagineers, their step into a wide, again, it's the same principle as the Jules Verne Tomorrowland in Paris, where it's like, well, this is what people thought the future would look like, and it's their opportunity to have like mini skyscrapers towering over like ancient architecture and the really nice sort of gateways and stuff over, you know, like these ancient temples. There's vines and cherry blossom trees growing out of every angle, and there's a Mechagodzilla, which the heroes use, because in the context of the story, the villains of the story are new animatronics. Adi's dead at the time the story happens. Adi is passed, so it's his daughter Maureen who has to run the park, but she don't know where to start. She's aware of this magic rock, this alien rock. She's aware that the robots are sentient, but she does not know where to start, so she actually outsourced the production of the robots to third-party companies to make them bigger, strong, you know, like the Spider-Man one, do you know what I mean? Like, they can do stunts and stuff like that, but they're all still sentient, and they get quite cocky. They think they're a lot better than the older ones, so there's that sort of thing going on. But Marlene has never, so I should call Marlene has never set foot in Wonderworld in 20 years. She's only come down because of this sweepstake, and these new robots have been waiting for her to come back, because their brain function is a lot higher than, say, the Stanleys or anything else, so they want to know, like, well, why did you create us? Well, what is our purpose? Well, what are we supposed to do here? Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the purpose of the story. So yeah, Made My Own Disneyland. Not really going to do anything with it. It's kind of one of these where it's just like, if I was to go anywhere near it, I'd probably or sort of even start like drawing it or mapping it out. I'd just use the normal Disneyland, but hey, it's fun to imagine. Production-wise, we're actually going to have to go to Disneyland for this one, lads. There's no two ways about it. You could dupe it for Disney World, absolutely, but the big part of the plot is that it was this ambitious inventor in the 1950s who made all this stuff, and obviously Disneyland withholds a lot of its original 1950s material as opposed to Disney World, which perhaps does not. So, yeah, suck on it, lads.